Do I even like Thomas? I mean, the answer would have to be an easy yes, right? I make all of these videos analyzing fan content and making my own series featuring all of these characters. But more and more as I age, I've been asking myself, is the show even good? Or is it just something that I remember fondly as a kid? And that's what I want to answer. Hey guys, Ty here, and welcome back to a different video. Today, we're going to embark on a big journey. A big 3-part series where I review and rank every single episode of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. Starting with the classic series. Now, what are we defining as the classic series of the show? Well, it's the series that were created and directed by Britt Allcroft and David Mitton, respectively. Without further ado, let's get into it.
All on board for excitement.
The first episode is very important for a show, especially a kid show, and Thomas and Gordon nails it. Thomas is a little engine that shunts for the other engines. Gordon, the biggest engine on the line, is fed up and pays him out. The model work here is overall pretty good, with some weird little inconsistencies. Like the set for Knapford kind of changes midway through the episode, seemingly out of nowhere. But overall, this is a very good first go-around. Edward is an old engine that gets teased by everyone else in the shed. A sympathetic engine crew brings him out. Later, Gordon gets stuck on the hill, and Edward helps him. The improvement from the last is massive, to say the least. The small filming errors were fixed, and there's some amazing shots that I completely forgot about. Going above Thomas and Gordon. Not wanting to get his paint spoiled by the rain, Henry stops in a tunnel. After trying to get him out, the Fat Controller walls him up in the tunnel. I don't really have a lot to say about this one. I mean, it's a decent episode, but it's kinda dull compared to the last two. Also, the controversy behind this is really dumb. I'm kinda glad that we haven't seen this in the mainstream for a while. Going under Thomas and Gordon. After Gordon's safety valve bursts, Henry gets let out of the tunnel and helps Edward bring the express on. A really nice redemption story for Henry. And we see the birth of a great camaraderie between these characters. This one's going under Edward and Gordon. Thomas complains about not pulling trains. So after Henry becomes ill, he gets to take his own, but he leaves it behind by accident. It's fine. All I can really say. The model work here is good as always, and you can really tell that the model crew has gotten into the rhythm. Going above Sad Story of Henry. Thomas pulls Edward's train and becomes a runaway. I really like the season 1 trucks. Something about how simple the faces are is really nice. Also the music when Thomas is pulling the train, it's so nice.
Thomas began going faster and faster. Whoosh! He whistled.
Top of the list. My favorite so far. James has a runaway train and Thomas saves him. And he gets a branch line as a reward. A nice redemption story for Thomas here. It really shows how much Thomas has grown through the season so far. Going under Edward and Gordon. James causes shenanigans on his first day on the railway. It's alright. The first half drags a little, but once you get to the passenger train bit, it really becomes enjoyable. Going below Big Day for Thomas. James takes a goods train, and his trucks break away. But he perseveres and gets the train to his destination. It's kind of a mid-episode. Middle of the list. I know there's more of a problem with the original book, but James really didn't have a consistent character at this point. James gets to pull the express after Gordon gets turned around. The best episode in this little James arc, and some of the best character moments for James so far, between him and Gordon.
Hello, Gordon. Is it tomorrow? Gordon didn't answer. He just let off steam feebly. Did you lose your way, Gordon? No, it was lost for me.
As well as a little introduction to the big 3 engines dynamic, going under Edward, Gordon, and Henry. Thomas leaves his guard by mistake.
It alright.
This is my least favorite so far. It just did not hook me in the slightest. Thomas wants to go fishing after seeing people do it on his branch line. He does after the water tower is out of order, getting fish in his boiler. I fucking love this episode. It's an absolute classic. The visual of Sir Topham Hatt and the inspector actually looking into Thomas's tank, I don't know. Something about it is just great. Going above, Thomas saves the day. Thomas meets a tractor named Terrence, who saves him after getting stuck in the snow. Absolute banger of an episode, and introduces one of my favorite characters, Terrence. And the sets look great in the snow. Oh, and Birdie's here! Yahoo! This is great, man. Top of the list. Love it. Thomas has a race with a new bus named Birdie to see who can get to the top station first. Now, I always forget how good of an episode this is, with, in my opinion, some of the best visuals in the season so far. Another list topper, going above Terrence the Tractor. The big engines have to shunt after Thomas leaves for his branch line and decide to go on strike after some incidents. Hit after hit, I tell ya! This episode was super fun to me as a kid. And it's still really good now. The visual of James spinning around on the turntable is always great. Right under Thomas and Birdie's great race. A new tank engine named Percy has come to shunt for the big engines. You know, it's really weird that Terrence and Birdie of all characters are introduced before Percy. You know, a series lead. Either way, this is a pretty decent episode. Percy being a shitter and fucking around with the big engines, it's always a fun time. Under Thomas saves the day. Percy, runs away from Gordon after stopping an accident. Another really fun one. I forgot that the stellar runaway theme comes from this episode. Under Tenders and Turntables. Henry gets some special coal to relieve his steaming issues. It's fine. I really don't have a lot to talk about with this one. I mean, it's good to see Henry in better spirits, I guess. Rock on, man. Henry pulls a fish train and crashes, causing him to be completely rebuilt. Time to get a little controversial. I don't really care for Flying Kipper. I mean, it's fine. It is. It really is. And on this most recent watch through for this video, I understood why so many people really rock with it. The visuals, they are amazing. They are some of the best in the season. Maybe some of the best in the show. But, I don't know. A lot of the elements that are done here are done way better further down the line. But I will say, the harbor is one of the best sets in the season. I absolutely love how this thing looks. Middle of the list. Gordon's whistle acts up after Henry comes home, and then Henry sneezes on some troublemakers. A fun story about Henry after he comes back. Although the two stories are kinda unconnected, which makes sense, seeing as these two stories were separate in the book. Above Henry's special coal. Sir Topham Hatt goes on vacation and meets a tram engine named Toby. After his line shuts down, Sir Topham invites Toby to his railway. A nice little introduction story for Toby. Toby is such a fun character, man, and this episode really matches the vibe. And it has one of the best endings in the season, I think. This is one of my favorites. It's so joyous. Above, Thomas saves the day. After a run-in with a police officer, Toby comes to run on Thomas's quarry line. I don't got a lot to say about this one. Regular Lawbreaker is honestly one of my favorite visuals in the show, but besides that, it's just fine. Middle of the list. After making fun of Toby's shabby appearance, James has an accident. I love this episode, man. From the crash to Toby and James's dynamic, it's all just so tasty. Right under Thomas and Birdie's great race. Gordon makes a fool out of himself and falls into a ditch. It's pretty good. The bit where he actually goes into the ditch is kind of funny. I like it a lot. This is a pretty big standout Gordon episode for the season. Thomas makes fun of Gordon after the events of the last episode. After that, he falls into a mine. It's weird to think that this story was used as the pilot episode for the whole show. In fact, you can still see remnants of the pilot in a couple of these shots here. Still, a really good episode, trivia aside. I always liked the bit where Gordon was going down the branch line as a kid. The engines have a party to celebrate Mrs. Kindly, who helped Thomas and Toby after an accident. A really nice finale. The rescue by Thomas, Toby, and Terrence is super fun. Overall, Season 1 is an incredible start to this series. Can't wait to see how they evolve in Season 2.
It's Emily's first outing. She's taking old Slowcoach to the fair. What a...
Now on to Season 2, starting with... Thomas and Percy get into an argument after incidents with Cole. It's a decent start to the season. Pretty good baseline. But I gotta say, the dirtier look to this really doesn't do it for me. Gordon and Henry have some trouble with a cow after making fun of Edward. The characters used were really fun, and it's a really good episode for Edward all around. Bertie has to chase down Edward with Thomas's passengers. It's great to see more of Bertie, and I think that this is the first episode to focus almost entirely on the roads. Edward saves the traction engine from the scrapyard. Trevor gets introduced here. And I gotta say, his faces in this season, whew, they are rough. Look at those pupils, man. That's crazy. Oh, now we are eating well. After making fun of Edward, James gets into a runaway, and Edward has to chase him down. This is the most action-packed episode so far. I love this one. Some of the best camera work in the series. Top of the list. Easy. Thomas and Trevor help to fix a harbor and become friends. I mean, it's good to see that they fixed Trevor's pupils, but that's the only positive thing I have to say. This one is just dull. It feels very slapdash. I mean, Thomas, his face doesn't change for the full thing. Come on now. Gordon and James pull a trick on Percy about signals after he pulls pranks on them. The characterizations for every single character here is just fun. And this is the first time we see Percy's busted-ass cylinder. I don't know how they allow that to stay like that the whole season. A new engine arrives to help Percy in the yard. Duck is here now, and it sets up some very fun stuff later down the season. It's a pretty good episode. To prove rails are better than the air, Percy races a helicopter named Harold. I really like Harold, man. He's such a fun character, bragging about the openness of the air compared to the confined nature of the railway. This is a really good episode. And has some of the best shots in the show, my god. Thomas becomes a runaway after his brakes fail. Duck talks to Terrence. Go-to-go conversation here, really. It's really weird. There is a lot of footage reused in this one. This is another one that feels incredibly hastily put together, and I'll explain why this is later down the line here. After not wanting to follow the instructions of a board, Percy is pushed into the sea. Another really good episode. It's a classic. Every character is on point. It's really, really good. Duck plays a trick on a new engine after the new engine is very boastful. This is a banger, dude. Come on. I love Diesel. He's such a great character. And this is a very good character building episode for Duck, seeing as this is his, like, I don't know, second main role in the whole show. Diesel gets Duck sent away after telling lies about him. Diesel is such a stinker in this, man. I love him. And the way he's able to tell these kind of convincing lies, I mean, he's such a devious character. I mean, it's in the name for a reason, come on. Duck redeems himself after stopping a runaway train by crashing into a barbershop. It's decent. It does a fine job wrapping up the arc these last two episodes are setting up. But overall, it doesn't hold up as well as the other two. But the crash is fantastic. The big engines are being delayed on the viaduct while it's being repaired, delaying Thomas. Bertie makes fun of him, and then breaks down. From that description, you can kinda tell that this one is a little bit all over the place. Yet, nothing much really happens. The best thing I can say about this one is that the mixed train in the beginning is kind of fun. That's about it. Donald and Douglas, the twin engines, arrive on the railway and cause a little mayhem on the first day. I like this one. Donald and Douglas are very cool characters, and this one has a really good crash. Now it's time for me to do a little bit of explaining. During the production of the season, there was going to be another episode called The Missing Coach. That was going to go in the middle of this Donald and Douglas saga here. But midway through, Britt Allcroft said, no, this is too confusing. Which, yeah, it kind of is, but kids can figure it out, it's whatever. So one episode had to have been filled in very last second. I'm thinking it's The Runaway, but there's a lot of people saying it's other things. I don't know. The engines asked Sir Topham Hatt to keep Donald and Douglas, after they helped them during the winter. More development for the twins, and it has a fantastic ending. A very fun episode. Thomas thinks he can drive himself, but when he tries, he crashes right into the station master's house. Another banger! The only thing I can kind of complain about is the strange positioning of the engines. I mean, Thomas starts heading out the shed, going the opposite direction of the house, and then crashes into the house. I mean, I don't know. Other than that, it's really good. A diesel railcar comes to Thomas's branch line, named Daisy. She doesn't want to pull the milk tanker, and rebels. Daisy is another very fun character, and she has some great interactions with Percy and Toby. Not to mention the whole conversation with her, Annie, Clarabelle, and Henrietta. Come on, gold. Fed up with Daisy's behavior, Toby and Percy switch jobs, and the trucks make Percy go into a runaway. Percy has gotten so many good episodes this season, and a fantastic crash to boot. A new diesel comes to the railway, and Bill and Ben, the tank engine twins, confront him about taking his trucks. A lot of introductions in this one. It's Boko's intro story, and it gives a proper introduction to Bill and Ben, who appeared back in Percy Takes the Plunge. Very, very good. After a signaling mix-up, Gordon goes down Edward's branch line. It's fun to see Gordon and Boko interact. I really like it. It's quite charming. It's pretty high up there. Edward takes a train of enthusiasts home, but breaks down while doing so. He perseveres and brings the train home. I think the Railway series version of the story is a little bit better. This episode is still amazing though. I thought it was going to go way lower down on the list, but I gotta admit, it's really good. I'll accept the popular opinion, fine. Oh my goodness, another amazing Percy episode. Such good characterization. Percy gets covered in hay, and Thomas gets back at him for tricking him in the last episode. A nice sequel story to Ghost Train. I love the back and forth nature of these two characters, man. On the way to pick up a Christmas tree, Thomas gets caught in a snowdrift. So Donald and Douglas have to rescue him in time for the Christmas party. This wraps up the season so nicely. We get one final appearance from Donald and Douglas in the snow, another good Thomas episode to wrap it off, and then seeing every character at the end. Whew, I gotta say, it's really, really fun.
You know me, the fighting freak.
Season 2 was a lot better than I remembered. But, oh my god, man. The stinkers. Oof. The last four on the list specifically are legitimately some of the worst episodes so far, but the best of the season are some of the best of the show. After this, the show took a little break, and a lot of the crew went to work on David Mitten's new series, Tugs. But in 1991, they came back for season 3.
Just look at the trouble they can get into. There are 45 collectible characters.
So fun fact, I recorded the scripts for the season 1 and 2 rankings 3 to 4 years ago. That kind of shows you how long this project has been in the back burner. But either way, here's season 3. Starting with, Percy wishes he could wear a scarf, but learns to be careful what he wishes for when he runs into Sir Topham Hatt's luggage. Now this is a fantastic start to the season, and this is by far the best the show has looked up to this point. The brighter lighting, the nicer colors, the engines look so much better. It's a very solid start. Percy promises that he'll take the Vicar's Sunday School home. In spite of heavy rain and flooded track, he keeps his promise, thanks to some help from Harold. Now, one of the show's biggest innovations from Tugs is live water. This is a massive step up because I don't think this could have been done in previous seasons. Percy actually going through the flooded track, the effect is fantastic in this. And I love that this continues Percy and Harold's dynamic. Above the last. Gordon had been working hard too often, and he sent for a rest. So James pulls the express for him. However, his journey becomes difficult when Toby runs out of water on the main line. It's pretty good. It's fun seeing Toby in a different location besides Thomas's branch line. But that's all I really have to say about this. Except the title. I really don't rock with the title that they gave to this one. It was originally called Doubleheader in the books, and I feel like that makes more sense than Time for Trouble. What are we talking about? Bottom of the list. Gordon is jealous when a famous engine comes to visit Sodor, who happens to have no dome. He tries to go faster than the visitor to try to prove to Duck that domeless engines aren't respectable, losing his own dome in the process. This one rocks! This is the first episode to introduce a real-life locomotive with City or Truro. They're able to communicate the accolades of the real engine without being super specific. And the stuff with Gordon is fantastic, especially when you know which sort of engine he is. Him being an A1, which is the actual first engine to go 100 miles an hour. Fight me on that, railway enthusiasts. Under Percy's promise. Duck is given his own branch line for his hard work, and becomes conceited, which makes Donald tease him. So Duck and his crew play a joke on him. This episode has some of the best sets in the show. I absolutely love Duck's branch line as a location. It's just so pretty. And I love Dilly the Duck as a concept. Engines having little critters are just super charming to me. I don't know. Below the last. Thomas's branch line is closed for buckled rails. So Thomas begins to lose his passengers to Bertie, but gets a surprise when the repairs are complete. First story to be written by Andrew Brenner. Now that name will come up far later down the line. But as for this one, I don't know, it's kind of whatever. Thomas is scared that Sir Topham Hatt will be upset with him because he was late, but then we don't actually see him until the very end of the episode, and he's just like fine with whatever's happening. I don't know. The two halves of the story feel kind of disconnected. Bottom of the list. Percy teases Thomas about being frightened all the time, but when Thomas delivers a Chinese dragon in the night, Percy is the one to become frightened. The fun continuation of Ghost Train. Now the roles are reversed, and I love it. Percy is such a shitter in this one. That's one of my favorite aspects of his character. The Chinese dragon is such an interesting prop in this show. It looks really cool with all the lights on it. Love it. While working at the harbor, Percy and Duck are piled up with goods work, so Diesel is brought back to help. But his misbehaving is even worse than last time, which caused the confusion and delay. It's neat seeing Duck and Percy at the harbor. There's a lot of that this season. I think that's kind of cool seeing engines outside of their natural habitats. And introducing Diesel back is a fantastic move, although he's far less of a schemer in this one, just more of a klutz. I mean, it's nice to see him. He looks great in this season. A lot better than he did last season, I think. Below Thomas, Percy, and the Dragon. Henry's favorite place on the island of Sodor is the forest, so he's very sad when a storm damages the trees. Luckily, Toby, Terrence, and Trevor help to rescue it. This episode is quite infamous due to the Reverend Wilbert Audrey not caring for it because it doesn't follow railway protocol. But I completely disagree. This episode is one of the most gorgeous, by far. The model crew really stepped up and made some of the most beautiful sets here. The same can be said for Mike and Junior's score.
Now, whenever Henry stops by the forest, he can see the new trees growing strong and tall. Sometimes everywhere is very quiet, and at other times Henry can hear leaves rustling or a bird's wing brushing the air. Often he can hear the distant sound of children laughing, and always he is happy here.
It's honestly heart-wrenching. I forgot how much I like this. Top of the season 3 list. Easy. Gordon refuses to get a washdown and gets stuck with goods work. But after helping James up the hill, Gordon learns that his favorite job is easier when he's clean and in order. It's fine. This one is one of the weaker Railway series adaptations, I think. It's one of those middle stories that should have been adapted in seasons 1 and 2, like Percy's Promise. It just doesn't make a lot of sense without the context of the rest of the book. Under a scarf for Percy. James plays a trick on Thomas and Gordon, which gets him in trouble. He soon learns that an engine doesn't have to pull coaches to be useful. I don't know what it is with James episodes this season. They're all just kind of weak to me. The resolution is fine with James bringing the railway inspector, but there's nothing really special about this one. Percy and Thomas are given the job of pulling the mail train. But after the mail is delayed one evening, both engines have to work very hard so Harold doesn't take over. After a couple of duds, we're back with a banger here. I think this is the first time that we've seen the mail train in the show, and I love that it exists. Percy having his own service is super fun. And again, any Percy and Harold interaction will always be a major highlight in my eyes. Not to mention the sets and the nighttime lighting are just fantastic. Under Henry's Forest. Bertie learns that he could trust engines when Thomas remembers his missing tar tankers after having an accident with some trucks. Now this is a club classic. I have this episode basically memorized. It's really good. Gordon and James are such shitheads here, and the fact that they kind of just leave at the end, it's kind of funny. Under Henry's Forest. A new diesel engine named Mavis reorganizes things at the quarry. But when she goes down the farmland, she gets stuck, and Toby has the last laugh. Another really good one. Mavis is such a fun character, and this is a perfect intro story for her. The wintry look really looks nice. Under Thomas Percy and the Dragon. Mavis makes a plan to go down the quarry line, but she ends up putting Toby in danger. A good closer for this little Mavis arc. Toby and Mavis's dynamic is super fun, and the Tug's influence in the bridge scene is super clear. With the destruction and the live water, it's great. Under Trust Thomas. Edward and Trevor help the vicar with a garden party to help fund a seaside trip for the children. And when Bertie becomes a stick in the mud, Terrence and Trevor come to help. The combination of Bertie, Trevor, and Terrence is one that I'm kind of sad we don't see anywhere besides this episode. Seeing an episode focused mostly on the road is something that I wish we saw a lot more. It's super charming. Under Toby's Tightrope. After James visits Trevor in the vicarage orchard, he's told about bees in their hive. He thinks he can easily make them buzz off, but is proved wrong when an accident at the station makes a whole swarm go loose. I really like this episode. This has the first, and I think only, example of cell animation in the show, with all of the bees flying around. It's super charming. Under Trust Thomas. When a regatta comes, Duck wishes he could travel the sea, but he later learns he's happiest on rails. Duck's interest in the sea is such a novel concept. A machine being stuck on land would kind of get curious about the ocean and sailing to other lands. I just think that makes sense. And the ending is genuinely one of the most gorgeous shots I've ever seen. Under Edward, Trevor, and the Really Useful Party. Bill and Ben have an argument about the turntable, so Boko makes a plan to have the twins be friends again. This one's okay. Bill and Ben's conflict doesn't really make that much sense to me. Middle of the pack. Under Diesel does it again. When a visitor comes to Sodor, Henry becomes jealous about his two tenders and wants to have another for himself. He gets what he wishes for, but not in the way that he wants. I think this is a pretty solid workaround for the original story. Actually having a character saying that the Diesels are taking over probably works better for this one. It's decent. Under Gordon and Special Visitor. Douglas travels to a station where only the Diesels work, and he meets a great Western engine named Oliver and his brake van Toad, escaping from scrap, a fate that all engines fear. This one is so good, dude! From the music to the model work, it's just so good! Easily one of the strongest episodes of the series so far. Under Henry's Forest. Oliver becomes conceited and thinks that he can manage trucks, but is soon proven wrong. A pretty good proper introduction for Oliver. It's quite the showing, with a pretty good crash to boot. Under Mavis. A double-decker bus named Bulgy claims that the railway should be closed, but after he steals Duck and Oliver's passengers, an accident puts an end to his lies. I love Bulgy. Both the character and the episode. I think this is the first super antagonistic road character we've seen in the show so far, and he makes such a good impression. I love his dynamic with the Little Westerners. Under Buzz Buzz. Bill and Ben cause a muddle at the yard, but all is forgiven when they bravely rescue all of the workmen at the clay pitch during a rock slide. This episode rocks! Bill and Ben are characterized a lot better here than they were in One Good Turn, and the model work for the rock slide is crazy. Percy and James both learn that brakes aren't the only thing that can get jammed. James pulling up to Thomas, talking shit about Percy, and then leaving is one of the funniest character moments I've ever seen in the show. And this might be the funniest episode in the series altogether. I don't know what it is about it. The character interactions, the sound effects they use for the crash. I don't know. It's really funny. Under Edward, Trevor, and the Really Useful Party.
If someday you should see Thomas the Tank Engine,
Thomas, Percy, Harold, and Terrence help some visitors after a severe snowstorm. And the engines get a very special Christmas, or Thanksgiving, surprise. Now this episode has kind of a weird history. In the UK, it's a Christmas episode. But in the US, it was changed into a Thanksgiving episode to better fit into the variety show that Thomas was airing in at the time, Shining Time Station. With that aside, how's the episode? It's fine. The winter sets in this season are just amazing, and this is probably the best example of it. Under all at sea. Overall, I really like Season 3. It has some of the best visuals in the series, by far. My biggest complaint is that some of the magazine stories that were adapted aren't super strong. But the ones that are some of the best in the show. Anyways, on to Season 4.
You're looking at an amazing Thomas. That's right, he's puffing proper steam. That's fantastic. And it's safe steam too.
Season 4! This is one of the most well-renowned seasons of the show. But let's see if it's really deserved. Thomas tells the story of Duke, a narrow gauge engine who worked with Stewart, also known as Peter Sam, and Vulcan, also known as Sir Handel. However, when their railway closes, the young engines are sold, and the old ones are left to be abandoned in the shed. Now, automatically, you can see the evolution between seasons 3 and 4. The sets feel grander, the music feels more cinematic, and seeing the narrow gauge engines for the first time is really cool. I love the props here. Let's see where this goes. After many years, some rescuers journey to find Duke and reunite them with his old friends. Now this is a good conclusion to the last story. This one's a little bit weaker than the last one though. There's a little more emotion in Grandpuff than there is here. But either way, still a pretty good episode. Under Grandpuff. Falcon would set up the mountain road with Duke. However, he was impatient and not paying attention to Duke's advice. He eventually winded up dangling over a cliff. Now this is a really fun episode. Duke and Falcon's dynamic is super strong here. And this must have been super scary to film. Imagine the Sir Handel prop actually falling off here. Ugh, that's freaky. Under Grandpuff. One evening, Duke is feeling too ill to manage by himself. Stewart teases him about this, but Duke gets his own back and proves that he still has a little life left in him. I really like this one. Duke showing that he's still capable is really great. He plays off of Stewart really well. Top of the list for me. I love it. It's also sad that we don't really see Duke after this episode. This is his last major appearance and his last speaking role. But he left a massive impression on the series and the fandom to this day. Really shows how strong of a character he is. Sir Handel is pushed off the rails by some angry coaches. Skarloey is the only engine left available, and is very determined to get his passengers home, even when his front spring breaks. Skarloey is such a good character in this, braving an injury to serve his railway. And the final line is honestly one of the best in the series so far.
Everyone was pleased with Skarloey, but he was still worried. Old engines can't pull trains like the young ones can. They can if they're mended, Old Faithful, smiled his driver. And that's what's going to happen to you. You deserve it.
Under Grandpuff. Sir Handel and Peter Sam are brought in to help Skarloey and his best friend Rheneas. Sir Handel is in a bad mood and deliberately derails himself to get out of work. Sir Handel's a really funny character, just derailing as a gag and then being shot up in the shed. It's kind of comedy gold. I like the visual of him coming off the rails. Under Four Little Engines. One day, Henry threatens to leave without Peter Sam's passengers. In a haste to meet his connection, Peter Sam accidentally leaves the refreshment lady behind. Another banger! Peter Sam and the refreshment lady having a little rapport is something that I can really appreciate. We haven't really seen engines and humans having anything like this before. Under Four Little Engines.
Every day where the little engines work, the crisp air.
Gordon tells her Handel a way to get out of work by pretending to be ill, leaving Peter, Sam, and a little diesel named Rusty to take over. However, some trucks confuse Peter Sam for Sir Handel and crash into him on the incline. Now this is one of the craziest crashes so far. It's also crazy that Trust Thomas was based off a good chunk of this story. I'd never noticed that until this watch through. Under Bad Day for Sir Handel. After Skarloey returns, Peter Sam informs him of a new arrival, a careless bad-tempered engine named Duncan. Soon, Skarloey is sent to Duncan's aid when he's stuck under a decrepit tunnel. Now this one is just kind of fine. Probably Skarloey's weakest appearance so far. Not really passing any wisdom to any of the characters. And this episode wasn't the best introduction for Duncan either. He gets a much stronger one later. Bottom of the list. Not because it's bad, but because it just isn't as good as everything else that's come so far. Rusty is concerned about Duncan, who ignores his warnings about a broken section of line. After Duncan derails, Rusty grudgingly comes to his rescue. Now this is a much better introduction for Duncan. It actually gives him some room to shine here, and it's a good introduction for him and Rusty's dynamic. I'm a big fan of that. Under Peter, Sam, and the Refreshment Lady. Peter Sam's funnel is knocked off by an icicle, and is temporarily replaced with a drain pipe. However, Peter Sam gives the other engines a run for their money once his new funnel arrives. Oh, this one is so good. It's such a different atmosphere from the rest of the episode so far, with most of the episode being set in winter. I love how the narrow gauge sets look in this. I also must compliment the music again. I never really mentioned it in Season 3, but the music in that was a mix of Season 1 and 2 synths and the new Proteus synths. And this is the first season to have all Proteus synths. And you can tell that Mike and Jr. really have mastered them. The little theme that plays when Rusty and the workmen are going down the line to the bridge is one of my favorites in the show.
The important work took longer than expected. As days went by, the weather changed. It became frosty and much colder.
The little strings are just so nice. Under Grandpuff. Skarloey tells Sir Handel about an anti-railway steamroller named George, whom Sir Handel vows to pay out, only to find out that he and George are evenly hot-headed. Hit after hit! I watched this one so many times as a kid. The George and Sir Handel rivalry, while being short-lived, is so fun. I can't believe I waited this long, but it's time to give George Carlin his flowers here. I love him as the narrator. He gives the season such a storybook feel with his narrations, and he's some super strong voices for certain characters, with George being the leading example in this episode.
Huh. You're Sir Handel, I suppose.
Sir Handel was standing no nonsense. And you, I suppose, are George? Yes, I've heard of you.
And I've heard of you. You swank around with your steamroller wheels, pretending you're as good as me.
Actually, I'm better. Goodbye.
Duncan complains that he's not getting polished. His rudeness reaches a peak when he stops at the viaduct and refuses to move. Another decent Duncan episode. I love how interconnected the season has been so far, with Duncan mentioning some past events. The one thing that throws it off, though, is that some of the visuals don't match. At the beginning of the episode, Nancy the cleaner mentions that Reneus is coming home soon, but we've seen multiple times that he's just been around. It's a strange inconsistency that I don't really see many people mention. Under Sleeping Beauty. Duncan hears the story of Reneus and how he saved the railway from closure, even after suffering a serious injury. And then, Reneus finally returns to the railway. Speaking of Reneus, he finally gets a spotlight episode. And it's a harrowing one at that. The rainy weather really brings this all together. It looks really good. Under You Can't Win. When Rusty hears that the engines need some help, he ventures to the other railway to find one, and finds a steam engine named Stepney. Another kind of controversial one here. That's because it strays away from real life and makes its own history for Stepney and the Bluebell Railway, with the aforementioned railway being the first preserved standard gauge line, and Stepney being a poster boy for it. But for me, this one ain't half bad. Seeing Rusty outside of the Skarloey Railway is a crazy visual.
It's fine. It's a lot better than people give it credit for. Under Sleeping Beauty. Stepney has been invited to Sir Topham Hatt's railway. Thomas gets jealous when the visiting engine is talked about more than he is, and is shunted so Stepney could pass him with a special train that night. A proper introductory story for Stepney. He's a pretty neat character, although I'm not sure if that's real railway brain rot talking or not. Also, it's crazy that we spent half of the series without really seeing the main cast. Under Rock and Roll. While pulling a train of hay, Stepney doesn't realize that a cricket ball has landed in one of his trucks. Caroline the car and the cricket players set off to pursue Stepney down the branch line. This is easily my favorite out of the Stepney saga. When I was a kid, I had a bootleg DVD with a bunch of season 4 episodes. And that was the only way that I watched it for a while. And they were all voiced by Michael Angelis in the UK dub. So I think that this is the first time I've ever heard George Carlin's version of it. I really like the southern jaw he gave Caroline.
I shouldn't be treated like this, she grumbled. This pace is too hot for my system. It'll fuse all my circuits.
Under Gallon Engine. A stuck-up Diesel insults the engines and makes a fool out of himself when he gets an inspector's bowler hat stuck through his air intake. Duck and Stepney volunteer to take his train. I love this one. The Diesel is such a memorable one-off antagonist. And Duck and Stepney pulling the express is such a good visual. Under Steamroller. A circus comes to visit Sodor. Henry and some workmen are called to investigate a blockage in the tunnel, which is caused by a very unhappy elephant. This one's weird. The original story was in a book with a bunch of stories that were adapted in season 1. See, I'm wondering why they couldn't have put it back then. Either way, still a pretty decent episode. Under Thomas and Stepney. Toad advises Oliver about regaining his respect from the trucks. Oliver struggles to take a goods train, but he's so determined that he accidentally rips S.C. Ruffy apart. Now, as of writing this segment, this is my favorite episode in the series. Period. End of sentence. I think it's the combination of characters, the sets, the stories, and a little bit of nostalgia from Wooden Railway remakes that really does it for me. And also the fact that Toad gets a leading role? We don't see that super often. Also, I love the voice that Carlin does for him.
I'm worried, Mr. Douglas. This disrespect for engines, where's it going to end?
It reminds me of Peter Lorre or Boris Karloff or something. And then it kind of transitions into Peter Falk later.
I meant no disrespect, you understand.
Top of the list. I love it so much. Daisy claims she can deal with wildlife much better than Toby. However, when she comes across a bull, she realizes that isn't the case at all. So he has to come in and handle it. Another Daisy episode. We haven't seen one of those for a while. And the story's pretty fun to boot. I don't have too much to say about it though. Under Thomas and Stepney. Sir Topham Hatt reads a letter inviting the engines to the mainland. Thomas becomes very conceited with the big trip and puts it all in jeopardy when he crashes through his set of buffers and into a brick wall. The 100th episode of Thomas and Friends. Seeing most of the major characters that have been introduced is really cool. And Thomas's crash is really good too. For some reason this one didn't really resonate with me. I think the story is a little bit better in the books. And there was a little bit of meta humor with people not believing the engines are real because they're in books. Under Rusty to the Rescue. After accidents in ditches and mines, the Queen comes to Sodor, giving Gordon and Thomas a very special opportunity. Another catch-up story. This one has continuity with Gordon Takes a Dip and Down the Mine, also referencing the Trouble with Mud from Season 3. Even starting with Gordon taking Thomas home from Down the Mine. It's nice to see this story finally finish up. Under Rock and Roll. Extra vans are added to the Flying Kipper, and as a result, Henry needs a back engine to get up Gordon's hill. Duck offers to help, but a badly attached tail lamp causes a problem. Another Flying Kipper episode. We haven't seen one of these since Season 1. And I think there's a running theme here with this train. Whenever it appears, that means you know a crash is coming. And the one of this is pretty good. Not the same scale as the last, but it's still pretty good either way. Under Bullseyes. After Toby misses an opportunity to join a parade, Percy is called to a harbor to deal with Bulstrode, a disagreeable barge. Bulstrode makes the trucks more troublesome than usual, and he pays for it dearly. The two stories in this are pretty disconnected, and the connection that there is pretty weak. I will say though, the Percy section of this episode is way stronger than the Toby one. Under Passengers and Polish. Tom Tipper, the postal worker, is unhappy when his van is replaced with a bicycle. Percy manages to help him, but not in the way that he intended. And to finish off the season, we have another fun and pretty simple story. I like Tom Tipper, and his post van. It's a nice little prop. Under Paint Pots and Queens. Overall, Season 4 is the strongest season of the show. The worst episode in this wasn't even bad. It just felt the weakest in a set of incredibly strong stories. On to Season 5.
It's Driveway Talking Thomas and Friends. I'm a really useful engine.
Season 5. Now this one is a pretty big shakeup for the series. The Reverend Wilbert Audrey passed away in 1997, meaning the crew could start writing original stories for the show, without adapting them from the Railway series or from magazine stories. Also around this time, Thomas and the Magic Railroad, the first Thomas feature film, was being developed. So director David Mitton was tasked to making this season as cinematic as possible. Also, Alec Baldwin took over for George Carlin as the US narrator. But let's get started with... A new crane named Cranky arrived at the docks and causes trouble for Thomas and Percy, but eventually he needs their help after a storm. Now Cranky is the first non-Audrey character to be introduced, and instantly he's really good. I can't believe it took him this long to introduce a crane character. He really fits in. And his intro story ain't half bad either. The story is super well written, and it feels like something that came right out of a late Wilbur book. Also, Alec Baldwin is such a good narrator in this season.
Help! Call the engines from inside the shed. I can't! Called Cranky.
Giving all these characters such distinct voices. I love it. 3 lorries arrive to Sodor and start taking over the engine's jobs. Eventually, the tables are turned, and the lorries all end up failing. Another really good one. The titular lorries are such fun characters. They all show up, be shitters, and then fail spectacularly. I understand why we don't, but I kinda wish that we saw them more as characters after this. They show up as just faceless background props later. Under Cranky Bugs. Gordon complains about the plainness of the new station, and he longs for a panoramic view. But then he gets one unexpectedly. Another good one! The fact that Gordon of all characters gets such a nutso crash is awesome. It's one of the most memorable ones for sure. Also, I really like the set for the new station. It kind of takes over for Knapford as the big station in this one. Under Cranky Bugs. Sir Topham Hatt runs into a series of problems, like his car getting a flat tire, Caroline breaking down, and falling into a muddy ditch with George, which ruins his suit on his way to his wife's birthday party. Another one that I'm shocked we didn't see sooner, a Sir Topham Hatt episode. And it's another pretty fun one at that. The pure misfortune that he has to endure just to get to his wife's party in time is pretty harrowing. Under the previous. James's bragging prevents him from listening to Henry, Percy, and Terrence's warnings about trees. Some crazy insults thrown in this one.
Why, James? I'm the one who needs a new coat. Look at me. I'd rather not, retorted James.
I mean, come on, that rocks. This episode is one of the ones that freaked me out as a kid. All the head-on shots of the engines with shock faces. It kind of unnerved me. I don't know why. We also see the return of my GOAT, Terrence. Oh yeah, it's been a while since we've seen him. But for whatever reason, this one felt a little bit weaker than all the rest. Under Horrid Lorries. Gordon has a problem with his fire and jokes about gremlins. Later, a special visitor arrives, and her dog runs away into Thomas's cab. This one's fine, but it does feel a little bit aimless. Like the crew just needed another episode, so they made one to fill the list that has a bunch of random stuff happening. It was neat to see Tom Hatt's mother, but that's all I have to say about this one. Under the last. George causes trouble around the railway. After Sir Topham Hatt finds out everything, George is eventually punished. Back to the bangers. Seeing George interact with the standard gauge engines is super fun. And the crash with Gordon in the trucks is one of my favorites in the whole show. Under Better View for Gordon. A Best Dressed Station contest is held across Sodor. However, as Percy helps to decorate Maithwaite, a hungry ram is found in the station and the decorations are ruined. I could be wrong, but I think this is the first time that any of the stations are referred to by name in the show. But about the actual episode, this is another pretty decent one. It's simple, but effective. Under Horrid Lorry.
Percy complains about being overworked. While working at the coal mine, some runaway trucks escape and crash into the mine shaft, causing everything to collapse. This one is insane. The avalanche sequence is pretty visually impressive. I also like the truck at the front of the line. It just happens to have S.C. Ruffy's face from last season. He kept being a dick, so they sent him to the mines. Wonderful. Under Lady Hat's birthday party. Toby is sent to inspect a dam and discovers a few leaks in it. It eventually collapses and causes an unsafe bridge to break with Toby being on it. This one is really action-packed. Really packing the crazy ones close together here. This one is super impressive. I think this is David Mitten's strongest directorial outing. Under by George. Henry refuses to believe in ghosts, but he and his crew encounter a series of spooky events during the night. I like Old Bailey. The voice that Alec Baldwin gives him is pretty funny.
I tried to warn you about the viaduct. Why didn't you pay attention?
Otherwise, it has a pretty nice and spooky atmosphere. Under Put Upon Percy. Bill and Ben are worried when they hear that a malfunctioning diesel is coming to help them. But it turns out the diesel is friendly, even after he breaks down. Can't believe Boko died after this episode. R.I.P., man. I mean, it's the last time we see him, so what else happened? I kinda love this episode. I love the dynamic between Bill, Ben, and the diesel in this episode. I wish he appeared more in the series. He just kinda disappears after this. This is honestly my favorite episode in the season so far. The twins are super endearing in this one. It really stood out to me as a kid. Top of the list. Sir Topham Hatt invites Stepney to work with Toby and Mavis at the quarry. Stepney gets lost on his way home, eventually arriving at the smelter's yard. Two diesels try to scrap him until Sir Topham Hatt finds out and puts a stop to it. Another fantastic Stepney episode. I was surprised they were willing to bring him back after their run in the last season. And I also love Ari and Bert in this one. It's the only time in the whole series where they feel actually threatening. I don't know what it is, if it's their weathering, like their lighting, or what. But they're just great in this. Under by George. Toby takes the Hats on an expedition, finding a castle and an old mine. The destinations are reopened, but Toby gets spooked when Thomas tells him a story about the old warrior. I love that Toby is getting a lot of focus in this season, and Bertram is a pretty interesting addition to this one. We never see him again. It would have been kind of cool to do so, but it's whatever. Under the previous. Henry is cross when Thomas delays him and refuses to listen to his warnings about a broken line. After that, he plunges into the sea. Another Flying Kipper episode, and probably the best Crash it's had so far. I love the visual of Henry spitting out the water. I don't know what it is, we just never see anything like that. Under Put Upon Percy. Thomas and Percy discover an old coach named Old Slow Coach. Okay. In a scrapyard. And they want to save her. They do after the workman's hut burns down. And they needed a replacement. This one's fine. The two stories in this didn't really gel with me. However, I like that they've actually put a reason for why the firefighters are out of water. It was because James had his fire in that same day. Under Ba. The engines discover that Harold has been hired to show a special visitor around the island, and fear that they're all going to be replaced. Sir Topham Hatt tells Thomas that he shouldn't listen to rumors after this. Why would they believe that? That's stupid. Maybe I'm actually smarter than the kid show. In all seriousness, this one's okay. I wish Harold actually had dialogue in it. Under the previous. Oliver is put on mail duty, but he ends up going down an old branch line, forcing Sir Topham Hatt to search for him, and discovering an old abandoned house. I really like this one. Expanding Oliver's character is always a nice treat. And I love that this is quite obviously Toby's old line. You can tell that Britt and Dave really wanted to explore this part of the island more. Under Lady Hat's birthday party. Mrs. Kindly asks Percy and his driver to find a good luck package for her daughter's wedding. This is kind of a heartwarmer. I love Percy trying to do something nice for Mrs. Kindly. We haven't seen that for a while. I think since season 1, if I'm not mistaken. And this episode is the only reason why I know what a good luck package is in the first place. Under Toby and the Flood. The Hat family go on holiday. Although, everything just goes wrong for them. I forgot about this one, honestly. But I think I'll have to remember it from now on. It's a really good one. I'm dating myself here a little bit, but I didn't know that this episode was just made so they could explain Annie and Clarabelle's new props. Learned that from the latest on Lick Tug video. Go watch that if you haven't. Above Oliver's find. Percy moans about his work at the coal mine and wants something exciting to happen. His wish comes true unexpectedly when a line of trucks break away from him, so he and Bertie must stop them. Another fun one! It's not often you see a Percy, Bertie, and Sir Topham Hatt team up. On to the previous. James sees Mrs. Kindly, who's upset about her sister not being able to visit. So, a mystery tour is arranged, and James is chosen for the special job. Another sweet one. I don't have too much to say about it. It just kind of feels like a weaker Happy Ever After. Under Ba. Hey Elliot, can you talk about this one real quick? I gotta go do something.
Toad the brake van is tired of going backwards all the time and wishes to go forwards for a change. The silly trucks grant him his wish and teach him to be careful what he wishes for. Hey guys, Elliot here. I was asked to review Season 5, Episode 23, Busy Going Backwards, which was awesome because I haven't seen a Thomas the Tank Engine episode in like a decade. So this was a really fun, like, going in blind reintroduction for me. It's a great episode, honestly. I have a few highlights written down in my notes. First of all, when Toad first breaks away, they use the 1812 overture, which is just like a great choice. I don't even need to explain that. It's just awesome. And then right after that, his car operator jumps out into the bushes instead of staying on to try to stop, which, like, that guy needs to be fired because they downplay it because, you know, it's a kid show and I get that. But, like, many people could have died in this event. And that guy was just like, Captain doesn't need to go down with the ship. It's like, dude, what the hell? I've written in my notes, James is stupid. What I mean by that, there's a segment where Toad is obviously still out of control, and he almost has a head-on collision with James, and they, like, shift the tracks so that he goes onto another line so he doesn't hit him. I don't know if that was the right terminology, but you guys know what I mean. And James, like, sees this happen, and he kind of looks behind with his weird train eyes, and he's like, what was that? It's like, what do you think it was, James? Like, you've been doing this for years. You know what a runaway train looks like. At the end of the episode, the way they stop Toad is they shift the tracks, and he, like, goes into a pond. And then Oliver shows up, who somehow turned around and got back right after Toad got there. I don't know how time works in this show. And he says, a pond is the only place for a toad, I suppose. And it's like, dude, what the hell? Like, again, people could have died. And, like, your friend is sitting in the mud after probably the scariest experience of his life. And he's like, matches your name now, doesn't it? It's like, dude, that's just rude. But admittedly, hilarious line. But, you know, all jokes and stuff aside, this was a great episode. The music's really good, not only like the 1812 overture, which obviously they didn't write, but even the stuff, like the show original stuff, it's always good. The models are really awesome. This episode really captures the vibe that you want from one of those old Thomas episodes. The cinematography, surprisingly dynamic, and maybe I'm just not giving the show enough credit. Maybe it's always like that, but they really surprised me with how, like, fun it all was. Yeah, I'd give it probably like 4 out of 5 stars, you know, 80% on the tomato meter, whatever, like, high marks you want to give it. A++, guys.
Under Cranky Bugs. Duncan teases Peter Sam after some trucks fall into the ravine. But when he crosses the old iron bridge, he's in for a very spooky surprise. I think this one captures the spooky atmosphere a little bit better than Haunted Henry from earlier. I'm not sure if it's the choice of character or what, or the location, but this one just kind of has more to chew on. Also, the Duncan model in this episode looks like shit. They made bigger models for the narrow gauge engines because the small ones from Season 4 were hard to work with, and Duncan is by far the weakest one, especially when you compare it to the original smaller prop. Under Stepney gets lost. Rusty is suspicious of a strange boulder lodged in the mountain. Soon, it goes on the rails and chases him and all the other engines, causing destruction everywhere it goes. Now, for some reason, Amazon lists this in the last episode in reverse order. I don't really know why. But honestly, it makes a little bit more sense. This feels more like a finale than the next episode, but we'll talk about that later. The chase Boulder gives throughout the Skarloey Railway is crazy. It must have been a nightmare to film. This also has one of the bleakest endings in the whole series.
They moved Boulder to a hill close by the yards. Rusty is sure that on a clear night it is gazing up at the mountain and that its sides are being carried on the wind to where it once used to stand proud and silent. I wonder if Rusty is right. Don't you?
Under Toby's discovery. Thomas is crossed with the snow, so Rusty tells him a story about Skarloey's own experience with an avalanche. Now this is still a pretty nice end to the season. It's not the most thrilling one out there, but the avalanche looks really nice. Put upon Percy. Overall, Season 5 is really good. The top 10 of this list are easily some of the best episodes in the whole show. After this, Thomas and the Magic Railroad released, and was followed up by Season 6. Let's see if they kept their momentum.
New Trackmaster Thomas at Action Canyon comes with everything you see here.
Now, Season 6 started in 2002. Thomas and the Magic Railroad was a massive financial failure. Britt Allcroft was ousted from her own company, and a bunch of creative changes were made. New writers were brought in, and this would change the characterizations of several characters. Let's see how it all panned out. Also, for some reason, Amazon has the episodes listed in production order. Some of the episode orders don't make a lot of sense, but, we're just gonna go with it. Cranky gets cranky enough to knock a shed down at the docks, forcing him to be stuck with Salty and the twins as he tells sea tales to Bill and Ben during the night. Now, it's not really to the episode's detriment, but why the hell is this one first? It has two characters that weren't even introduced yet, Salty and Harvey. Well, besides that, this is a pretty good one. Cranky and Salty's dynamic is very fun. A new dockside diesel named Salty arrives on Sodor, and is sad when he's sent to the quarry instead of the dockyard. And here's our Salty introduction story. I gotta say, I love Salty. He's a really good character. He has such a different personality that fits right into the series, going above the last. A new crane engine named Harvey arrived, but the engines don't like him because he doesn't look like a normal engine. And here's Harvey's intro story. Harvey's model is one of the best in the series so far, but I can't really say the same for his character. He's kind of a nothing burger in this. I guess the little conflict that is here doesn't really feel like it's interesting at all. I wasn't really sucked into this one at all. Under No Sleep for Cranky. When Percy reaches a broken signal, Harold comes to take the mail, with disastrous results. This really is the start with the mail train being Percy's main job. It was in seasons 3 and 4, but in this, it was emphasized like crazy. The crash is interesting, but that's all I can really say about it. Under the previous. Thomas is hauling a very heavy special when one of his side rods falls off near an old shed. Inside, his crew discovers an old disused Sentinel lorry named Elizabeth. I think this is the first time the term special when referring to a job is used. Prepare to hear that a lot going forward. Either way, I do like Elizabeth. A steam lorry belonging to Sir Topham Hatt is a really cool concept, I think. And her dynamic with him is fantastic, frankly. Going under Salty's secret. A fogman named Cyril uses detonators for fog warnings. Sir Topham Hatt replaces him with a foghorn, but it turns out to cause trouble for Thomas. Luckily, Cyril arrives in time to save Toby from an accident. This one's decent. This would have been a perfect opportunity to introduce Old Bailey from the last season, but Cyril's cool too, I guess. And the crash is pretty gnarly. Feels like something out of season 5. Under the last. A front loader named Jack is eager to be really useful, but he jumps in and foolishly tries to take a load of rocks up a hill by himself, leading to disaster. Our first Jack in the Pack episode. This and the next episode is sort of a backdoor pilot for a spin-off show featuring all of these construction vehicles. Is my interest peaked with this potential show? Yeah, I'm happy to say that it did. I really like all of the characters in this one. Even from their little screen time, you can immediately clock their personalities. And their props are so interesting to watch. They're also just so complex. Under Salty's secret. On his second day of work, he is worried that he won't be able to stay. But he does, after rescuing Thomas from a broken bridge. A really good redemption story for Jack. This one feels like it's plucked straight out of season 5. Top of the list. This one bangs. Thomas is told to deliver a Christmas tree to the mountain village, but becomes cross when he has to use an old snowplow. This one's okay. Some of the stuff in it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why does Thomas have this random-ass snowplow instead of his regular one? Why does a snowplow break like that after hitting a rock? I feel like it would go the other way, right? I don't know, this one just kind of rubs me the wrong way. I feel like I'm just going to forget what happened in the next hour. Bottom of the list. Donald and Douglas crash into a hay cart, and they blame each other for the accident. It becomes so heated that they refuse to work together. It's interesting to see the Scottish twins separated, and I think it's a pretty interesting concept for an episode. I think the twins feuding here works really well. We've never seen them argue like this. It shows a side to their characters that we just haven't seen before. Under No Sleep for Cranky. Henry has an accident, leading Diesel to return to the railway. Diesel tries to prove that he's the strongest engine in the world, much to the troublesome truck's amusement. Diesel is just kind of a dipshit in this one. The writers have entirely lost the plot on his character. I mean, I guess seeing Henry pull all those trucks at the end is kind of neat. Under Bad Day for Harold. It's Halloween, and Thomas keeps teasing Percy about being a scaredy engine. However, the tables turn when Thomas gets scared at the smelters himself. I like this one a lot. The team-up of Thomas, Duck, and Percy is a pretty good one. It combines Percy's major dynamics from Season 3, and I really appreciate that. Under Jack jumps in. When collecting some trucks, Percy is spooked by an abandoned mine that sinks into the ground, and he thinks some naughty gnomes are causing trouble. Bringing back the best dressed station contest from last season was fun to see. Otherwise, this one kind of stinks. You probably shouldn't have any railway infrastructure anywhere near this mine, since everything's collapsing. And why are the gnomes being delivered here? I just really don't like this one. Under It's Only Snow. Ari and Bert play a trick at the smelters, causing both James and Percy to be stuck in the middle of their trains. This one sucks too! They've taken away all the mystique and threat of Ari and Bert from Season 5 and turned them just into jackasses. And then Percy's blamed for the events of the rest of the story, and that's just dumb. I mean, it's clear that none of it was his fault. James's character is the only positive in this one. Above the last, but just barely. This one is terrible. Thomas and, mostly James, are worried that a red-hot air balloon will take their passengers away. This is just another dumb one. Why would the engines think that a single hot air balloon would just take all of their jobs? It's like Thomas and the Rumor from last season, but worse, somehow. If you want to see a better version of the story, go and watch Skarloey Railway 01's version, called James and the Balloon, from his Wooden Railway series. It tackles the story in a much more logical way. Under Bad Day for Harold. This season needs to start and go quick. A big freeze is coming, so Percy and James are sent to deliver coal to the stations. Percy is scared of Jack Frost, but James is given a surprise when he's parked in a siding covered in icicles. Why the fuck does the station master look like that? Can he stop? What happened, man? This season took a crazy downturn. There's just nothing to say here. Like, I legit just can't think of anything to write. And that's somehow worse than the others. Bottom of the list. Gordon tells Salty that it's not dignified for him to pull trucks. That night, Gordon is sent to collect some at the docks, but his pride gets the best of him as he set down a rickety old branch line by mistake. Okay, we're back at a decent one. The crash here is wild. The fact that Gordon, of all characters, is getting these crazy crashes is kind of interesting. This really is the fault of the new writers, but he feels kind of out of character in this one. I feel like this would feel more at home as a James story. Under No Sleep or Cranky. Percy keeps getting dirty while doing his jobs, but when he volunteers to take clean sugar to the chocolate factory, he becomes the dirtiest of all. Now, if we're talking about characters being, well, in character, here's a prime example for this season. This is much better. That being said, I don't really have anything to say about this one either. I like the crash, but that's about it. Middle of the list. Ben is sent off to get new buffers, leaving Bill to work with Mavis alone. As a result, a jealous Bill becomes careless and ends up damaging his own buffers. It's kind of interesting seeing the China Clay twins separated. I think it's a pretty interesting concept for an Hold on, I feel like we did this one already. This one is honestly a better version of Twin Trouble. It feels like there's an actual reason for the twins to be separated in this one. Under No Sleep or Cranky. During a blizzard, Toby is flagged down by a farmer, whose sheep are due to give birth and urgently need a vet. So both Duck and Toby try to rescue the lambs from being stranded. This one's really sweet. I love Toby in this one. This one's kind of a sleeper hit. I don't see anybody talking about this one. This might just be the best of the season so far. Top of the list. I really like it. The famous opera singer, Alicia Body, arrives for a concert on Sodor, and Thomas is chosen to take her from the docks. At the docks, Thomas notices a squeaking mouse, and Percy is given his chance to help his friend. The music in this one is kind of the best in the whole season. I really like that little opening theme.
The engines on the island of Sodor love the summer.
And this one's just fun. I like Thomas and Percy's little conflict. Under the last. Thomas wishes to go faster than Gordon. He receives his wish when he's given a job to take a jet engine to the airfield. Now this one's a banger. It's a really funny one too. A lot of good character interactions in this.
Bertie was excited when he saw Thomas flying down the track. Want a race, Thomas? Beat Bertie? Never mind.
Under Toby Had a Little Lamb. 3 good episodes in a row. Hopefully they keep it up. Gordon believes that Edward should be retired, but Edward proves himself useful when Gordon gets stuck in the hill. Again. Okay, I spoke too soon. This one sucks. There is a lot of character regression in this one, and it sets a really bad tread for Edward's character going forward. Under World's Strongest Engine. Skarloey, Rheneas, and Rusty are sent to work with Duncan at the incline. Duncan gets too impatient and careless, causing him to end up in a muddy ditch. This one's fine. The crash is cool, but that's about it. I kinda hate all the characters in this one. I think Sir Handel and Peter Sam should have taken Skarloey and Rheneas' role in this one. I know why they didn't use Sir Handel, because they couldn't. His larger model wasn't made yet. But still, this is just another example of the characters being written weirdly. Under Bad Day for Harold. Skarloey and Rheneas' line is closed down, and they're reallocated to the quarry. But Rusty decides to use the Fortnite, Jesus, of blasting time to help Elizabeth clear the line. This one is fucking stupid! Why the hell would they shut down basically the whole Skarloey Railway? Were the riders not informed that the quarry is part of the railway? That's dumb! That's so dumb! And the weird little workaround to get Elizabeth to help them. I hate this one. Bottom of the list. And bottom of the ranking overall. Duncan boasts about his own whistle, but it becomes loose and rockets away when he whistles to Terrence. An okay one to end the season off with. This is our first Railway series adapted since season 4, with this story being based off of Mike's whistle. The story's fine, it's done better later. Under No Sleep for Cranky. Did they keep their momentum? No, they did not. I am not a big fan of this season. Over half of it is just mediocre or just bad. That being said, the good episodes, they were really good. They're all-timers. Episodes like Toby Had a Little Lamb and Thomas Percy and the Squeak were big surprises. Now, I know a lot of the issues are due to new writers starting on the series. Let's see if they can get their act together next season.
So much work to do, Thomas wanted an early start moving the logs.
And season 7. It's truly the end of an era. This is the season that finishes off the show's classic era. A lot of elements from the past years are going to be gone after this. Director David Mitton left, composers Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell both left, and it's the final season to be shot on film. And this season is the first introduction to the new US narrator, Michael Brandon. We're going to be hearing a lot of him soon. So let's get into it with a new engine named Emily comes to Sodor. Thomas thinks she's stealing Annie and Clarabelle after he collects some new coaches. Emily proves her worth by saving Oliver and receives the coaches that Thomas got earlier. A decent start to the season. I like Emily as a character, but she isn't the strongest here. Her characterization just isn't the best. That's just growing pains. Percy is worried about some wobbly tracks and tries to warn Thomas and the Fat Controller, but they all ignore him, leading Thomas to get stuck in a landslide. Now this one has a lot of nostalgic value for me. I had the DVD of the same title as a kid, and this one stood out a lot to me because of that season 5 stock footage at the beginning. Even as a kid, I thought it was weird that Sir Tom Had just didn't listen to Percy about unsafe track, and it's great to see that Percy's character remains consistent here. Fergus, the railway traction engine, is given a job working at the quarry, but he wants everything to be done right, much to Bill and Ben's annoyance. I'm watching this in the UK release order, because that's how it is on Amazon Prime. So I think it's kind of weird that Fergus's introductory episode is way later than this, but whatever. Nonetheless, this episode's really fun. I really like the dynamic between the twins and Fergus. Also, that rock slide is so gnarly. It's unfortunate that it broke Fergus's prop. Skarloey crosses an old and damaged bridge and has an accident, and he's too scared to cross it again, but overcomes his fear by saving Rheneas when he runs out of water. I'm gonna be sticking to the popular consensus here. This episode kinda blows. Skarloey's character is completely out of whack. I mean, I guess to an extent it does make sense because if I was about to die over a bridge, I guess I wouldn't really want to go over it either, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense logically, I think. Skarloey would have to cross the bridge to get to the sheds anyway, right? Also, why did the workmen just leave the trucks here? And why is Rheneas the only other one working? We see Duncan in the background there. I don't really like this one. Bottom of the list so far. Edward needs refitting when he was originally going to take the Soda Brass Band to an evening summer concert. But he gets his chance when the band suddenly gets stuck in the aftermath of a storm. Edward has a raw crash in this one, and it's kind of nuts. Also, seeing Birdie in a leading role again is pretty fun. And besides that, this one is kind of middle of the road. It's fine. Henry is very ill and breaks down when he is sent to deliver some coal trucks to the Burnham docks. Luckily, Emily comes to the rescue to help her friend. This was the first time since season 1 where Henry was portrayed as sick. So I think it makes sense why Thomas and Percy would think that he's faking it. And they get some good repercussions for their actions. This also continues the strange theme of engines just leaving trains in the middle of the line. Don't really know what's going on there. James is given a very important special of collecting the Queen of Sodor and taking it to the smelters. To his surprise, it turns out to be a very leaky and old slimy barge. This one is kinda strange. James is boastful the whole episode, and then he gets his comeuppance from something completely unrelated. I'm also starting to notice this season's problem with using stock footage. A good chunk of the opening of this one is just seasons 3, 4, and 6 footage, going above Edward's brass band. Peter Sam is given the job to find the perfect place for the refreshment lady's new tea stand. An incredibly charming one here. I always love when Peter Sam gets an episode. I think this is his first starring role since season 4, if I'm not mistaken. I love the continuity with him and the refreshment lady. This one's up there for me. A new tank engine named Arthur arrives on Sodor, and he's known for his spotless record, but it doesn't last long when Thomas plays a cheeky trick on him. This is the first pure banger of the season. I really like Arthur as a character, and I love him and Thomas's dynamic. No notes. Top of the list. Easy. Toby's favorite place is the old windmill, but after a storm damages it, he finds a way to fix it. I forgot how charming this one was. Besides that, I don't have a whole lot to say about this. You can tell that David Mitton wrote this one, however, with the scene of the windmill getting struck by lightning and exploding. I mean, that's kind of a Mitton classic. Donald and Douglas are given a special of taking a celebration train to Callan Castle, but get stuck near the lock and find a scary monster. Luckily, it turns out to be Harvey, who comes to rescue them after a landslide knocks their train off. Another Donald and Douglas episode, and I'm glad to say that's quite a bit better than the last one. And to my knowledge, this is the last time they get a leading role until season 20. Their banter here is pretty fun too. Rheneas is given a special. I'm gonna get sick saying that, dude. Oh my god. Of taking school children around the narrow gauge railway, but is worried when he thinks his job is not special enough. He soon gets his hopes when he goes down a very bumpy line. This one fucking stinks. It's probably a moot point to mention the characterization at this point, but this just doesn't feel like Rheneas at all. It would have made a little bit more sense if it was a Peter Sam episode like they were originally going to, but still, not really. I mean, come on. I don't like this one at all. Bottom of the list. A storm arrives at Brenham Docks, and the lighthouse's lamp goes out. Luckily, Salty and Fergus are there to save the day. Another certified banger. So fun fact about me, one of my favorite movies is Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse. And since this episode is about saving a lighthouse, this kind of gives me a little extra sense of excitement. I also really love the pairing of Salty and Fergus. Visually, it looks really cool. Top of the list for me. Oliver hates snow, but discovers how magical it can be when he becomes a snow engine for the Sodor Winter Festival during the Christmas season. An Oliver episode. I feel like it's been so long since we've seen one of these. And it's a very good one at that. I love Oliver and Toad's dynamic in this one. It really works for me. Arthur hopes to work the new line to the fishing village, but Thomas is unfortunately given the job. Luckily, Arthur gets his chance when Thomas has an accident. This one has some fun continuity here, with Arthur still being a little bit new and Thomas hating fish. And a fun crash to boot. This one's also going high up there. A brand new park is opening at the narrow gauge railway. and Duncan is asked to deliver an elephant statue to it. However, he forgets his brake van and ends up being very careless. It's fine. I mean, the runaway itself is pretty fun, but that's about it for me. A mighty new engine named Murdoch longs for some peace and quiet, but soon learns that he would much rather have friends like Salty and Harvey. I really like Murdoch. For one, his model is one of the best in the series, and I think his personality is pretty interesting too, wanting nothing but peace and quiet. I think he's my second favorite character to come from this season. I just wish that it gave him more to do. Fergus has to work with Diesel, who plays a trick on him and makes him go to the smelter's yard. After Fergus ends up breaking the rules for the very first time, Thomas is sent off to search for his friend. Oh my god, finally we get to Fergus's introduction episode. At least, that's how I consider it. Mainly because it establishes who Fergus is in the first place, and why he's at the smelter's yard in Salty Stormy Tale. All that being said, this one's pretty strong. You can really feel for Fergus in this. And it's crazy how strong of a character Fergus is in just these few episodes. I really wish they fixed this prop so it could appear more. But alas, what are you to do? Sodor is short on engines during the summer holidays, so Bolty is brought back into service to show holiday makers around the island. Another really fun one. Having a direct sequel to something from Season 3 isn't something I really expected to get. And it was super well executed. Although, I do wish the Duck and Oliver appeared somehow, but what are you to do? Like I said. The Vicar is organizing a village fete during the summer, and Harold wishes he could join the fun. He gets his chance when he rescues a cart horse named Pegasus. It's nice to see some Harold focus. Middle of the list. A new line is about to open on the narrow gauge railway, but Skarloey ends up running late for the announcement. He's worried about running late again, but it ends up being worth it when Lady Hat and Sir Topham Hatt have trouble riding a hot air balloon. Another one that I describe as just fine. The hot air balloon was an interesting return. Also, Skarloey and Sir Topham beefing is kind of a fun concept. Never really thought I'd see this pairing ever. Mayday has come to Sodor, and a best decorated engine contest is declared, but Gordon wants nothing to do with it, because he thinks decorations aren't dignified for an express engine. This episode is weird, man. It's another one where there's so much going on, but so little actually happens. Gordon goes on a nutty adventure, yet no status quo changes happens at all. A speedy mainland engine named Spencer arrives to Sodor with the Duke and Duchess. A party is taking place in Marin, but Spencer refused to take on water, causing him to get stuck on Gordon's hill. Luckily, Gordon comes to his rescue. Now, this is objectively the strongest episode of the season, and my most rewatched. The fact that Spencer and Gordon's rivalry is almost instantly established is just fantastic. Spencer is the best new character to be introduced this season. Full stop. While it's not my favorite nowadays, I can't deny how good it is. It's up there. Elizabeth is given a special of delivering cakes to the children of the mainland during the Christmas season. However, despite her reliability, she slips into a snowdrift and needs Thomas's help. Now, I could say with confidence that I've seen every episode of the classic series of Thomas at least once. All except this one. And I can officially say that. It's okay. But my goat, Terrence, actually gets something to do for once. Let's go, dude! It's been a while since we've seen him do anything of substance. Overall, fine episode. I'll be honest, Terrence's inclusion kind of bumps this one up a little bit. Rusty notices the old wooden bridge needs repairs, but Duncan ignores his warnings and runs recklessly into a dangerous situation. This one was surprisingly tense on rewatch, for Thomas standards at least, for Season 7 standards at least, and this is the better Duncan episode of the season by a long shot. Thomas goes back to racing Birdie during the Children's Sports Day. Even though Birdie wins the race, Thomas receives a medal for being very helpful. And this is a pretty solid episode to round off the season and the classic series as a whole. Yet another sequel story, this time being of Thomas and Birdie's great race. It's a very solid one. Overall, this season was okay. The highs of the season were some of the best in the whole show, but some of the lows are some of the lows. And with that, that's everything in the classic series of Thomas.
Trackmaster Remote Control Thomas at Tidmouth Sheds. I think I'll go for a ride.
Okay, that was a lot. But now, it's time to get all of these episodes ranked. At 182, we have The Flying Kipper. Nah, but can you imagine? At 182, we have Rusty Saves the Day, Rheneas and the Roller Coaster, The Old Bridge, Jack Frost, Percy and the Haunted Mine, Middle Engines, It's Only Snow, Edward the Really Useful Engine, The World's Strongest Engine, James and the Red Balloon, Duncan, A Bad Day for Harold, Percy's Chocolate Crunch, Harvey to the Rescue, Gordon Takes a Tumble, A New Friend for Thomas, Twin Trouble, Better Late Than Never, Buffer Bother, Emily's New Coaches, Thomas Gets Bumped, Edward's Brass Band, Faulty Whistle, The Fogman, No Sleep for Cranky, James and the Queen of Sodor, Scaredy Engines, What's the Matter with Henry, No Joke for James, The Runaway, Toby and the Windmill, Gordon and the Gremlins, Percy Gets It Right, Double Trouble, The Grand Opening, Salty Secret, A Friend in Need, Thomas and the Conductor, Harold and the Flying Horse, Time for Trouble, James and the Trouble with Trees, Jack Jumps In, The Trouble with Mud, Not So Hasty Cakes, Safe from Scrap, The Sad Story of Henry, Percy and the Signal, Cal on the Line, The Runaway Elephant, A Scarf for Percy, One Good Turn, Thomas and the Rumor, Bad Day at Castle Lock, Home at Last, Elizabeth the Vintage Lorry, Woolly Bear, The Refreshment Lady Stand, James Learns a Lesson, Special Attraction, Trusty Rusty, A Big Day for Thomas, Diesel Does It Again, Foolish Freight Cars, Bill, Bannon, Fergus, Passengers and Polish, Thomas, Percy and Old Slow Coach, Best Dressed Engine, Thomas and Gordon, Henry's Special Coal, Thomas and the Search for Fergus, Hooray for Thomas, Thomas, Percy and the Dragon, Thomas and the Special Letter, Peace and Quiet, Rusty to the Rescue, Bulgy Rides Again, Make Someone Happy, Whistles and Sneezes, Bah, Donald's Duck, Horrid Lorry, Haunted Henry, Sleeping Beauty, Bulldog, Trucks, or Rusty Helps Peter Sam, A Proud Day for James, Something in the Air, A Bad Day for Sir Handel, Snow, Put Upon Percy, Tender Engines, Henry and the Elephant, Edward, Henry and Gordon, Fish, Trouble in the Sheds, Bullseyes, Gordon and the Special Visitor, Mind That Bike, Percy's Promise, Percy Takes the Plunge, Duck Takes Charge, Oliver's Find, Sir Topham Hatt's Holiday, Thomas Breaks the Rules, A Surprise for Percy, Ghost Train, Something Fishy, Oliver the Snow Engine, The Deputation, Mavis, Happy Ever After, Thomas, Percy, and the Post Train, Thomas and Percy's Christmas/Mountain Adventure, Percy, James, and the Fruitful Day, Thomas and the Missing Christmas Tree, Lady Hat's Birthday Party, Thomas and Stepney, A Close Shave for Duck, Oliver Owns Up, Gordon Takes a Dip, The Flying Kipper, Diesel's Devious Deeds, Down the Mine, Thomas's Christmas Party, Thomas Saves the Day, Paint Pots and Queens, Rock and Roll, Toby and the Flood, Thomas Comes to Breakfast, Rusty and the Boulder, Edward, Trevor and the Useful Party, Peter, Sam and the Refreshment Lady, All at Sea, Four Little Engines, Pop Goes the Diesel, The Diseasel, Toby the Tram Engine, Donald and Douglas, Thomas Percy and the Squeak, Thomas Goes Fishing, Daisy, Toby's Discovery, Duncan Gets Spooked, Edward and Gordon, Thomas and the Jet Engine, Gordon and Spencer, Spotless Record, Percy's Predicament, Stepney Gets Lost, Trouble for Thomas, By George, Birdie's Chase, Wrong Road, Heroes, Bowled Out, Salty Stormy Tale, Toby Had a Little Lamb, Terrence the Tractor, Toby's Tightrope, Steamroller, Percy Runs Away, Percy Proves a Point, Bulgy, A Better View for Gordon, Special Funnel, Buzz Buzz, Grandpuff, Train Stops Play, Tenders and Turntables, James in a Mess, Gallant Old Engine, You Can't Win, Trust Thomas, Edward's Exploit, Thomas and Bertie's Great Race, Busy Going Backwards, Cranky Bugs, Old Iron, Double Teething Troubles, Escape, Henry's Forest, and Toad Stands By. And now to answer the question posed at the beginning of this video. Do I like Thomas and Friends? Yes. These first seasons at least. Admittedly, I did get a little bit rough there at the end, but I completely understand why this show has stuck in my brain for all of these years, and why I appreciate it so much. But next time, things are gonna start to get a little bit dark as we go into the new era of Thomas and Friends. Join me next time on a different video. See ya.
Hey guys, post-editing Ty here. A version of me that I never thought I'd see. This project has consumed my content creation for a little while here. And if you're seeing this, you made it to the end, and I thank you so much for doing so. A few orders of business. First off, I would like to formally announce that I have YouTube members open. So if you are at all inclined to shoot me a couple bucks every month, you can now. You'll be getting stuff like early access to videos, behind the scenes stuff, a little monthly Q&A if you're a little higher up there. If you're not in a position to do so, don't do it. But If you are, and if you want to help out, go for it. It's there. And I think this place could use a little fresh coat of paint. So